Site of execution. Was it the site of Jesus' crucifixion? We don't know. But we know that close by the place where Jesus was crucified there was a garden, and in the garden there was a tomb. Just think about that for a second. That close by, the proximity between the place of execution and a garden. Now you've just walked 150 yards through a garden, and there was a garden here in the time of Jesus. We know that because of this. This is a wine press. So what was here in the time of Jesus was a working garden, was an agricultural land. They brought the grapes, they put them here, they trod on them in bare feet, they collected the grape juice in the basin down at the bottom. Now this wine press is just down over here on the other side of the low wall. You'll see it in a few minutes on our way down to the tomb. So this definitely was an area of agricultural work. You've been to the Garden of Gethsemane. In the Garden of Gethsemane they were growing olives. In this garden they were growing grapes. So when the archaeologists rediscovered this, they knew that it was Roman era, Roman style. So we have a known site of execution, we have a known garden, and we have a tomb. Now the tomb that you're going to go inside is like the tomb of Jesus in 7 different ways. This is a floor plan of the tomb. Firstly, the tomb of Jesus was closed using a rolling stone. That's how this tomb was closed. Secondly, the tomb of Jesus was cut from solid rock. So was this. Third, the tomb of Jesus was the tomb of a rich man. So was this. Joseph from Arimathea was wealthy. Fourthly, the tomb of Jesus was a Jewish tomb. Joseph from Arimathea was a senior Jewish political leader. Any tomb that he had built would have been built according to Jewish custom and Jewish style. Now the Jewish custom of burying people in the 1st century, you can describe it to me because you know what it was. They took the body of Jesus, they wrapped it in perfumed linen strips, they laid it to rest on a ledge. The idea was that the body would decompose. 12 months later they would come back and they would collect the bones together, and they'd put the bones into a bone box or an ossuary box, and then they would store the bone box back in the tomb. If you're going to do that, then you need one specific feature. You need a ventilation shaft to take away the smell of the decomposing body. If you don't do that, it's going to be virtually impossible for you to go inside it, because all of the smell would have been contained within a confined space. This has got a ventilation shaft. It is a Jewish tomb. Fifthly, on Easter Sunday morning, Luke tells us that at least 5, maybe 6 women came together to the tomb and went inside it. So Jesus was not buried in a little hole that just took dead bodies. He was buried inside a tomb that was big enough for people to go inside. When you come to the tomb, you will go inside this area here, which is the weeping chamber, and you will go in 8 at a time and stand up inside. It's substantial in size. It must have been similar to the tomb of Jesus. If it isn't the tomb, it's like it. Sixthly, Mary Magdalene goes to find the men. She finds Peter and John. They come running to the tomb to see whether or not what she's told them is true. John describes in remarkable detail what happened. He said he outran Peter and got to the tomb first, but did not go inside. He stood at the entrance to the tomb. He crouched down to look inside. From the entrance he could see the ledge where the body had been. He could see the grave clothes, they were still there. He could see the linen napkin that had been over Jesus' face, folded up in a place by itself, and he could see that the body was gone. And all of that he could see from the entrance. Now if you stand here at the entrance to this tomb and you look inside, you can't see that grave bed or that one. They're out of your eye line. To see them you've got to go inside. But from the entrance you look across the weeping chamber and you see that grave bed from the entrance, exactly as John describes it. Seventhly, if you go inside this tomb and you look for a dead body, you are going to be disappointed, because God raised Jesus from the dead. You've come to an empty tomb today. You've not come to a mausoleum to look for the mummified remains or the embalmed remains of some prophet from long ago. You've come to an empty tomb. In fact, it's so empty that I might tease you a little bit and say I'm surprised that you came so far for so little, because you knew before you came that there wasn't anything to see except an empty tomb. God raised Jesus from the dead. Now those words were the words that Peter used on the day of Pentecost. I want you for a moment just to realize exactly where you are. I'm sure that there have been moments when you've pinched yourself and you said to yourself, gracious, I'm in Jerusalem. Now just think for a moment. Everything that we have been talking about until now, previously you've been reading about in the US. You crossed an ocean and a continent in order to come here. Just realize where you are. Behind you, 200 yards away, is the Damascus Gate. It will take you less than 2 minutes to walk there. You just go out of the gate, down the lane, and down the street, and you're there. The Damascus Gate of the city. And it is now where it was then. On the other side of the Damascus Gate, go another 500-600 yards. And Peter is standing and he's preaching. He's got a congregation in front of him of thousands of people. And he says to them about Jesus being crucified. And they would have known about this. It was the talk of the city, surely, wasn't it? You know, these things didn't happen in a corner. This all happened publicly. So here is Peter standing there, and this is what he says there. He says, and this Jesus who's been crucified, God raised him from the dead. You can walk from here to where he was preaching in less than 10 minutes. So you hear him saying that Jesus has been raised from the dead, and you're skeptical. You say to yourself, these kind of things don't happen. I don't believe it. Where's the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea? He's a well-known figure inside that city. Many, many, many people will know him. They will know that Joseph from Arimathea has been building his tomb because it wasn't dug overnight, like a grave is dug overnight back home. This had been in the works for months as they were chiseling it away out of solid rock. Joseph from Arimathea is building his tomb. So you're listening to this sermon, and you've got the opportunity before he finishes his sermon of leaving, going to check for yourself, and then you can go back and you can tell Peter one of two things. You can either say to Peter, Peter, today I have become a disciple of Jesus because I've checked the tomb and I found that it's empty. Or, today I've discovered that you're lying through your teeth. Why was it that nobody challenged him? Why was it that that day 3,000 people believed? When you consider how close where he was preaching is to where the tomb was. That close. Over there we said that Jesus paid a ransom for us. It's one thing for a ransom to be paid. It's another thing for a ransom to be accepted. Ransoms are sometimes paid, and evil men, they get the money and they say, oh, we want more than this. We consider this to be a down payment. This is not payment in full. When Jesus paid our ransom, did he pay it in part, leaving us something to contribute to it, or did he pay it in full? You know the right answer because you've been to Sunday school. Yeah, he paid it in full. But how do we know that? Him saying so isn't good enough. He said on the cross, it is finished, but maybe he was wrong. Maybe he didn't get it right. How do we know he paid it in full? We know it has been paid in full because God raised Jesus from the dead. It has been paid and accepted. And that's the key. It's been paid and accepted. God says in the resurrection, my justice is satisfied, my holiness is satisfied, my wrath is satisfied. It's the receipt. You go into a store, you buy something, you get a till receipt, and you keep it with you, just in case somebody challenges you and says, oh, you're stealing that. You say, no, look, it's been paid for. Jesus' resurrection is the guarantee of the acceptance. So when somebody says to you, well, a person like you think that you can be forgiven? I got the receipt. It's in the resurrection. Somebody says to you, you think that you're going to be able to be reconciled to a holy God? Not a chance. You say, I got the receipt. They say to you, you think that you've got an eternal destiny in heaven? God, that's ridiculous. Somebody like you, I've got the receipt. God raised Jesus from the dead. But there's something else. See, over there they said Jesus was a blasphemer. What's God the Father's view on that? Does he put a tick alongside that? Absolutely not. What's he got to say then about Jesus being a blasphemer? This is what God's got to say. He says, look, I've told you twice, and now I'm telling you the third time. I told you in his baptism. What did I say to you in his baptism? I said, this is my beloved Son, listen to him. I told you in his transfiguration, this is my beloved Son, listen to him. And I'm telling you now in his resurrection, and I'm telling the whole world, this is my beloved Son, listen to him. See, the resurrection authenticates everything that Jesus said and taught and preached and did. It authenticates his ministry, provides a guarantee, cast iron guarantee, 100% true, gold plated, rather solid gold, I should say, the truth, and it's authenticated in the resurrection. But one more thing. As we are going to go from here in a moment, we're going to go down to the tomb. When we go there, I want to encourage you to do one thing, and that's to listen out for Jesus and to seek his presence. One of the tragedies of this garden is that we have visitors who come here, and you know, they only take one thing away with them. They take their photographs away. That's all that they do. And there are other people who come here and remarkable, miraculous things happen. I've taken 4 groups this afternoon. The first group was an American pastor who said, when I came the last time, I brought somebody with me. He had been an atheist, he had become an agnostic, and when he was here in the garden, he became a disciple of Jesus. The following group was a German group. A woman came to me at the entrance to the tomb. She said, I was here 3 years ago. She said, I had got discs in my spine that were severely crushed, and I'd got other spinal problems. She said, when I walked out of the tomb, I was healed instantly. And some people just walk away with photographs. Mary Magdalene, maybe in this garden, reached out to the presence. She was conscious that there was somebody close by. She said, where have you put the body? And Jesus spoke to her. Listen out, you might hear him speak your name this afternoon. Just be expectant as you come to the tomb. Amen.